Welcome back, and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. Consumer viewing habits of TV continue to evolve, and they keep moving away from traditional TV towards more advanced TV that is streamed on mobile devices, tablets, gaming consoles, and smart TVs. OTT, or over the top, gives marketers and advertisers a growing way to reach audiences with more targeted ads, as well as a way to reach some demographics who never watch traditional linear TV. Mark Kaminski is the co-founder of Over the Top Marketing, and on this episode we'll discuss OTT, connected TV, addressable targeting, relevant and contextual advertising, cord cutters, cord shavers, and never quarters, the tug of war between digital video and TV teams, Roku, Pluto, CBS, Peacock, and a lot more. So let's tune in to a co-founder who's over the top with a TV shark who's definitely over the top on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Mark, thank you so much for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective. If you would, tell us a little bit about your background and your career today.
Thanks for having me, Kenneth.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to be here. So my background is pretty simple. Been in digital marketing for quite some time. Also got involved in some performance marketing on a national vision scale. And then more recently, about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, really saw the opportunity of OTT. Actually became a streaming person myself. I cut the cord at my house, and then I noticed, different commercials were showing to me. And I having the digital background, I thought this was something that I should look into. And about a year and a half ago, started Over the Top Marketing to really do some media buying in the OTT connected TV space.
So how do you describe the audience that fits the OTT market today? If let's just sort of level set what the OTT market is in particular.
The OTT market obviously is growing rapidly, just looking at the numbers, but a lot of it is there. Some people cut the cord due to finance. Their cable bills are going up and up, and they decide that they're going to cut the cord. I think a big segment of the people who are cutting cords or streaming television is the cord nevers, right? The young generation that is coming up, and they're getting their first apartments or buying houses. They're not even thinking about getting a cable subscription. They're going right to a Hulu or Pluto or just individual apps. So it's a mentality. You would think that not even that generation, but if you're streaming TV, you're a little bit more tech savvy than the average person, that just for the purpose of having either a connected device into the TV or utilizing a smart TV for your everyday viewing.
We've got the cord cutters, the shavers, and I call them the never quarters. But, what is it that, not necessarily the same thing as the never Trumpers, but it kind of fits. But, when you think about, where this fits, what is the specific problem that OTT really helps solve for a brand or for a marketer who's considering OTT?
I think the biggest thing is the targetability of the advertiser being able to get their commercial in front of the right people at the right time. And when I say right people, meaning, a certain age group who do these certain things, have this kind of household income, as opposed to traditional linear television, which is great. You're kind of broadcast, it's like the shotgun approach, right? You're hitting a certain geographical area with your commercial, whether they're 2 years old or 92 years old and everyone in between. Where OTT is, you're saying, okay, I want to hit that same geographical area, but I only want females aged 21 to 45 who have a household income of over $75,000 and like cats. You can do that with OTT.
Yeah, so I come from that addressable background as well. Like I said before, when we were talking before the show started about my background in addressable TV. So love the targeting capabilities, but why not consider then, for example, something like addressable TV, which again, while there are limitations with each kind of advertising, whatever it is, what does it address necessarily that something like addressable doesn't?
Addressable TV is great. Those numbers are starting to come down as more and more people are getting able. We always say to all of our clients is we never want to be their only avenue of advertising. Obviously, we want the biggest budget possible, but at the same time, there's no reason why you should not be doing a little bit of traditional television, some addressable television, OTT,
Amen.
digital, social media.
And then test to see what works.
All of your money in one bag. Yeah, right. Exactly. And then you could adjust your budgets, just like you said, saying, hey, this one's performing a little bit better than that one, and move your budgets where you need it.
Well, how has OTT changed at least the functions, or at least created opportunities for you as an agency now that as you're able to offer this to this clients who are trying to solve those specific problems?
It's a very easy conversation because it does make sense. What's hard from a sales standpoint is it is considered new or newer, even though OTT's been around for a while. But the concept of a company saying, I've been running, a small example would be like a local car dealership. They're all running on cable television because they have to. Their competitors are there. They spend a ton of money on it. And then OTT comes up and say, hey, car dealership, you should be shifting some of your budgets over here because the eyeballs are coming over here. It's scary to them. It's a different pricing model. It's based on CPM. There's a lot of different acronyms. The bottom line, though, is the conversation's easy, saying it's video marketing just like television, but we can narrow that target down and you'll be able to see, or you're going to be able to pick and choose who's seeing your videos and who's not.
When we spoke and I was talking about addressable TV, I was on a panel not that long ago where I was considered one of the pioneers in addressable television. So when you say older, or newer rather, it's kind of sad to think this wasn't that long ago, even with addressable.
Right.
The capabilities are emerging so quickly that just a couple of years ago, you could feel like some sort of, old black and white Western pioneer. I mean, it's not exactly
Right.
Oklahoma. It just seems like we're forging ahead so quickly in capabilities of being able to show them type of ads. So when you're addressing OTT in particular, are you addressing it differently from a perspective now with people who are considering it as opposed to other types of channels, not necessarily TV versus TV, but what they see in Google or Facebook, because they're all different, walled gardens. Everybody's competing for those dollars. Where are you starting to look at how you show that somebody is going to get results from a sale as opposed to necessarily brand awareness campaign that so much of TV's been relegated into incorrectly for so many years? That doesn't mean that everything needs to be a direct response, but it does give you a few more capabilities to see what's worked quickly, especially with OTT.
It does. And that's a great question. And it's kind of it's the $1 million question too.
Yeah.
To
What's the ROI that everybody's worried about right now?
Exactly. But to your point, with OTT, you do get, at least with us, you do get your data real time. You're able to see, how many impressions am I getting today? Where are those impressions actually running? And then a big KPI that we run our business on is complete view rates. So we want to make sure that the people watching the commercial are watching it from the beginning of it to the end of it, all the way through. Obviously, we can't control what that user is going to do when they're watching it. But if we start seeing certain, we call them publishers, but a certain app that the commercial is running on, and the complete view rate is at like 15%, 20%, 30%, we just start eliminating them from the list. Let's not run the commercial there. Let's run it over here where the people are watching it 100% all the way through. So that's an example of a KPI that you're going to get with OTT in real time, and be able to optimize towards.
So you just said something with commercials, but when you especially think of the never quarters, they typically don't want to see ads. These type of ads, unlike a lot of them, you're really sort of forcing someone to watch the ad on a full episode type player. There's not a lot of, but a lot of the never quarters are jumping towards things like Netflix, for example, or subscription type services, premium subscription services where they're not having to pay for ads. Do you see that as any sort of limitation as we evolve more with a lot of the streamed content that we're getting?
To a degree, yes. I'm not overly concerned that this, I'm a Hulu Live subscriber. So I pay whatever, 50, 60 bucks a month. I still am forced. It acts just like cable. I'm forced to watch commercials, and I get it. I mean, we're going into the land of not being able to pay attention for longer than a minute to anything. But I do see the revenue dollars for these publishers, for the streaming services, are so big on advertising dollars that I don't see a model that, at least the short term, I'm sure someone's going to come up with it, that they're going to turn around these revenue dollars to not have commercials all the time.
Yeah, I just keep wondering though how many people you said, and I know it was just the name of it, the Hulu Live, but I can't remember the last time I watched something live other than the news. So I've been fast forwarding through ads, which is kind of wrong considering I work in the ad market and have worked in the industry for a lot of years. but it is still that push that a lot of those, again, I'll call them never quarters, don't want to see those
Mhm.
ads. So what do you think the limitations are with OTT advertising that you'd like to see break through and evolve over the next few years? What the future of the state of the market?
It's a good question. I think having even more transparency, meaning,
Yes.
so when you're running OTT, we have the data to know that it ran on Pluto. Not all the time are these publishers directly reporting back to us saying it ran on the Discovery Network at 3 p.m. during the show, potentially even getting more data on the user side. Obviously not breaking any rules or anything, but be able to get more information. Because I think what is coming next is that much easier way to connect. I look at my television, I see a commercial. As soon as I see that commercial, the advertiser is going to be able to remarket to your cell phone. And then, then when you're driving down the street and you're close to that Walmart that was just on TV, you're going to be notified that, Walmart's 2 miles down the road. So the complete circle, I think, OTT is definitely a part of that. But I think that complete circle is going to be coming soon. Some people, users, might not like that. It's kind of Big Brother-ish, but I think that's where it is going.
Well, and to that point, I think another one of the things that's going to continue to happen, having worked for a big data company and being very sensitive to data privacy, I still think we're going to run into some issues, despite what we want to do as advertisers to be able to optimize off of a TV ad and then retarget or something on social and everything else. That's independent of somebody picking up a Bluetooth conversation, but and then start targeting the ads that way. But I'm very interested to see where the market evolves from a data privacy standpoint. How could that potentially impact what we're doing in advertising with what we're able to actually see today? It could be an issue. It's one of the biggest things, and it's a hot button topic for me where I speak at a lot of conferences about digital marketing and TV, that convergence. But for the last few years, we've really run into a problem with a lot of agencies and a lot of brands trying to understand their role in navigating this space as well, is who owns TV and who owns digital. I still talk about this all the time, that I watch video on a 65-inch laptop that just so happens to be made by Samsung as opposed to, Dell or something like that, or Mac. And so that's a problem for a lot of brands and a lot of agencies trying to figure out who owns the TV space, the linear space, versus the connected space that OTT lives in. So what's your thoughts on how to help a brand or an agency sort of navigate that? Because at the end of the day, the person watching the ad doesn't care about the sausage making process. And that's not going to necessarily help you figure out whether or not you're going to do well on a campaign or, make sales for a brand. So how do you look at the tug of war between the different silos that exist today with buying that advertising?
That's a solid question. It's also a difficult one. As far as OTT goes, because it's streaming over the internet, it is a little bit more less regulated, so to speak. An example would be on traditional linear television, you cannot advertise, and even on Google, you cannot advertise CBD, cannabis, as an example. On OTT, there are publishers out there, and a significant amount of them, that will accept it. Why? They're not being regulated by the government, and they're a private app, so to speak, and they would allow certain material to go onto their platform where others won't. So I think that's an example of the differences. OTT, it's kind of that interesting thing to say, is it television? Is it digital marketing? I truly believe it is a combination. I think the way you said it, I watch video on a 65-inch laptop and digital kind of all together. I don't know if there are clear lines.
No, they're getting more blurred continuously. But how do you look at the size of the household graph? How are you leveraging partners to build out these larger scale audiences if somebody really wants to scale this out? Because reach, although I always used to think was a really nasty word because they talk about targeting so much, there are some limitations. How do you look at helping address the size and the kind of tools that you use, whether it be a data set or something, to be able to build and scale your audience?
Yeah, that's kind of the the big part of OTT, right, is being able to get that target together.
Yeah.
We do partner with a lot of third-party data partners.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them specialize in particular industries. An example, political's starting, to come up really big. And we have a few third-party data vendors that just specialize in politics. So we can target, do you lean left? Do you lean right? What are your thoughts on certain topics from a political standpoint? That's huge. We're not going to pretend that we are the data slicers and the data, capture. We're getting that data from top level data suppliers.
So one of the questions that comes up all the time, because I've been pitched it when I was on the brand side of how I get pitched it as a solopreneur. I've been pitched it as an agency, and I always love having this conversation. How do you differentiate yourself now as an agency against all of the different agencies who say they know digital? Because and I know that people that understand video and TV on top of that, it's a much different than just a typical agency that just does pay-per-click or pay-per-call or something like that, or all the others, which is just as different as somebody that knows digital marketing and creative marketing as well. Now, a lot of the times the creative and the social stays aside from this, but this is still kind of a clouded area. And again, if you're trying to optimize a campaign, you want to make certain that you find the best partners you can.
Right. We differentiate ourselves, especially when we're going through the sales cycle, right? And we're discussing with a potential new client. Our first conversation is we always tell our client, just like we tell our clients that we don't want to be the only advertising angle that they do. They should be running some digital and some other things. We're also fully transparent and say, hey, we understand that this is a new space for you potentially. Go speak to as many other OTT agencies as you like. Because it comes down to a few different things. One is the transparency and being able to supply that advertiser with real-time data so they know exactly what they're getting. And two, the price alone will tell you if they're direct. Because what's happening a lot, which happens in the digital space, and I know it happens in TV, is that there's agencies out there that are literally just middlemen. They broker it out. So they bring in a client and then they come, because we work with agencies. We work as a white label backend for some agencies who are going out to the market and saying, we're an OTT advertising agency. In reality, are they? If they're giving all the data that we're giving to them, it's just an additional layer there. So it is hard. And what we tell our clients, like I said, is just talk to as many people as you can, understand the industry, and pricing transparency, and just doing what's right for the client is and that goes across any, not even just marketing, that's across any industry, out there.
So if you think of a typical campaign, whether it's over a week, a month, a year, or whatever that timeline is, when you think of, I'm going to put some ads on Google, I'm going to put some ads on Facebook, I may advertise on Amazon if my product or service fits that as well. Traditionally doing some TV, whether it's through linear or some other, maybe it's VOD or SVOD, but where do you think OTT fits in exactly today and going forward? Because one of the things I'm thinking through a lot right now is that TV in its traditional sense has changed because of the pandemic. The sticky question that all of us are trying to figure out is how much of that is going to continue to change, because it used to just be cord cutters.
Right.
Now that shavers group, the one that hasn't fully cut and they're middle-aged of some sort, they're grown-ups into a little bit, that's really the audience that I think is going, to make or break. It's something like in politics, it's the independents that are going to make or break the election.
Right.
We've got to figure out, are they going to go back to maybe not even traditional TV, but some sort of, are they just going to
alternative, right?
Yeah, are they going to continue with that alternative? But another problem, they cut the shavers were looking to save money, but they're quickly finding out that so much of that advertising now costs them more than they were paying for satellite or cable. So
Right.
It's a very easy path to go down and find out you're starting to spend too much. And then again, that becomes a brand problem to try to figure out where to allocate a finite amount of money that you've got in your budget that you can't let succeed or can't let fail anywhere. So where do you think that plays? Where do you think OTT plays its best role successfully in a campaign today?
I selfishly, I would say, OTT is the best and you should be spending your budget there. But in reality, what we talked about earlier was being able to intelligently spread that budget across multiple platforms. Your digital play, like you said, social, OTT. Usually what we suggest is taking a percentage. We don't want anyone, especially if they've never run OTT, to just jump in with both feet and here's our television budget and now we're going to move it to OTT. Give us a small percentage, or give OTT a small percentage of your current television budget, and then over time that could start increasing, because like a couple of topics that we had, OTT is that bridge between digital and television. At the end of the day, though, it's still video marketing. So it should be looked at it from that side, from a budget standpoint. Well, my suggestion is, peeling away some of that traditional TV budget, testing with OTT, testing small, and then growing that out with success.
Well, and the good side is that, at least as of right now, if it doesn't fit for you, you can always go back, but you should at least test it and expand that.
Absolutely.
So we talked a little bit about ads, but one of the things I'd like you to think about is, how does OTT, in your mind, give the user a better experience? It's something we think about all the time now in marketing, but I'm interested to hear what your viewpoint is.
Yeah, so it's more of a concept, right? I'm a user, I'm watching the show or the news or a live Yankee game. The commercials that I will be seeing should be more relative to me.
Yes.
That's the concept of OTT. So that would be the advantage for the user, that I'm no longer going to see at, my age, Depends commercials, that I don't need them yet, thank God. But I might see more, I'm a parent of two boys. I might see more of that kind of stuff. So that would be the quickest response as far as what's best for the user.
Yeah, and what's interesting too is the trade-off is the amount of data that the user gives to somebody that allows them to target them. However,
That's Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a lot more irritating sometimes just to watch an ad that makes zero sense to you whatsoever, which is why they show me Shark Week commercials every 2 seconds. I am their addressable market. So I ask this a lot of my guests, just to sort of get to know everybody better, for the audience to get to know them better. So I'm going to ask a little bit different question. Instead of asking you what your favorite movie is, since the topic du jour is TV, what is your favorite TV show of all time?
Ooh, that's a tough question. One of the most enjoyable shows, and I did not know that this question was coming, so it caught me off guard. But Entourage was really good.
Yeah, Entourage is a good show.
Entourage, I'm just looking back. That was one, and that was when, what was it called? Netflix they would send the DVDs to your house. That's how I watched Entourage. Yeah.
Wow. That seems like an ancient time. Well, so I do ask this of all my guests because this show is called The Shark's Perspective. My nickname is Shark, has been for a long time. What is your favorite kind of shark and why? You're in Connecticut. You're not too far from the water. Get some larger sharks around the northeast of the country. So what's your favorite kind of shark and why?
I would say hammerhead, only because they look cool. I've never seen an animal look that kind of freakish. But you're right. Being here in Connecticut, we do live on the water. We're shoreside, and we're right near Cape Cod, and that's where the great whites are. It's kind of like, it seems like the capital of the world for them.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mark, it's a special time of the show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions that you're going to be asked today?
Yes, sir.
All right. Number 1, CBS All Access or the Peacock? Peacock's free
CBS
as of right now. So
It is. I would go CBS.
Yeah, same here. Number 2, if you had to go away from connected TV, cable or satellite?
I'm going to go to cable only because I've had satellite before I cut the cord, and I'm no longer, it's frustrating when it just rains and I can't watch TV.
Yeah, good point. All right, number 2, Roku or Pluto?
Pluto. Pluto's a very cool app.
Nice.
Publisher.
Number 4, Amazon Prime or Netflix?
Well, that's a real tough one. You said Amazon Prime, and my Alexa just went off.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. She's talking right now. I would say Netflix only because my wife and I are active in like a couple different shows there. So Netflix.
Yeah, well, they've come out with by far the most content over 2020. I mean, during the pandemic, they killed it with the amount of content and just the
They
buzz
did.
around it. It's been I used to think so much more that Amazon Prime was going to win. Yeah, they still may win the long-term game, but Netflix has really killed all the networks. They're pretty
They have.
affordable, and they've just been killing it. So number five,
Right.
and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread.
Cornbread.
Good man. All right, so Mark, where can people find out more about you, keep up with what you guys are doing at Over the Top, and more?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me, Kenneth. It was
Absolutely.
great. You can find us online. We're at overthetop.marketing. Overthetop.marketing. You can email me, Mark at overthetop.marketing, and I always get back to everyone, and we would love to hear from you.
Awesome. Mark, thank you again so much for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
All right, Shark. Appreciate it.
So there was my conversation with Mark Kaminski, the co-founder of Over the Top Marketing. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from our conversation with him. First, when you look at the market for OTT, let's first address the audiences served. In today's cost-conscious world, you have the traditional TV watchers on satellite or cable, and some even with rabbit ears. Yes, there are still more than you think left if you ever bought local TV, but OTT really starts speaking to the cord cutters. They don't want to pay for the old big bundled cable bill, if you remember. You've got the cord shavers, people who are just wanting to trim their bills and keep what's necessary only channels, the crowd that went from 500 channels down to a much smaller lineup that's more affordable. And then, as I like to call them in the political sense, the never quarters who grew up on mobile devices and gaming consoles. So it used to skew younger and younger only, but consumption habits plus a massive need for many to at least believe they're saving money gives you a much more expanded level of targeting and capability with OTT to reach that audience, which is growing. Second, I don't like it when the bright shiny objects and new channels become too singular a focus for marketers and advertisers. And connected TV is not the new TikTok. But OTT in some ways reminds me of testing Bing to Google or Instagram to Facebook. It's similar and different, and often your customers can be on both. What I really love with OTT, though, you should have several toes at least in the water in order to test to see what works. You don't jump all in with your advertising thinking your entire audience is there, but you should be in at least for taking the best parts of digital, which allows you to test more rapidly and then see what works for what you need. So much TV has traditionally been directed by the brand conversation, and so much digital was often directed by the direct response only conversation. This at least allows you to more quickly test what actually works and then look at the data behind it. But again, understand that TV in any form is still just a larger part of a much bigger marketing and advertising puzzle to your customer. Test, test, and test, and be able to intelligently move your budget around and actually take a look at what is performing, not just at what you think is performing or what some agency tells you is the superior creative. Third, the only thing I don't like about stream content is that you cannot fast forward through most of the ads with a full episode player, but at least the ads can be more relevant and contextual to your audience, and that does help a little bit with the experience of your brand. But regardless, where are we going with Future State? Hopefully more transparency, better places to run ads, more respect for privacy, and I hope shorter walled gardens so we can optimize for the customer and not just for the publishers who help prop up those silos. And speaking of silos, unfortunately, digital video and TV teams are still often siloed. The problem is that it's not harming your viewer or potential customer when siloing these advertising efforts amongst agencies. But the tug of war still exists with many brands and agencies that I've spoken with as of late who still tug, if you will, for that TV and video together. It can be optimized a lot better when the tug of war ends. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time, and I hope that you'll be part of my entourage. So join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.